TRT.today, not .com, TRT.today. Andrologics, West Palm Beach, because experience matters.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios, Theo Dorsey is theoretically speaking. Streaming live on YouTube, here's Theo Dorsey.
Cam Ward definitively said, I am the best quarterback in the ACC, and he won't stop until he's the best quarterback in the nation. The Heisman's not out of reach. The Canes being in the college football playoff for the first time, not out of reach. If you missed the Cam Ward interview, Miami quarterback, it's wherever you can find your podcast, theoretically speaking. Subscribe and also tap in and listen to that one. It was a great one with a quarterback that's coming with a lot of promise to Coral Gables. And again, I got Miami as the best team in college football. C-Cat.
College football. Number one.
Best team in Florida.
There we go.
In the state of Florida in college football. Let me reframe that because there's a lot of ball to be played, and I'm not making that big of a declarative statement. That's exactly the trap you fall into again. The Canes fan, it's never just good. If it's a great season, then it's we got to be perfect this year. You got to go straight through 15, 16-0. Got to temper those expectations a little bit if you don't want to be disappointed down the line.
But I think with a 12-team playoff, so many more teams will be optimistic about the end of their season than was in the past, just by sheer numbers. Adding 8 more playoff-considered teams, I think you'll feel better about it.
Yeah, you can take a loss. You can take a loss or two.
Or you can take being the 12th best team in the country, losing in the first round. That's all right. For a lot of programs out there, it's playoff or bust.
Would
and
that
when
be
the playoff
right?
didn't happen.
Would it be okay? Like, you're a Penn State guy.
Yeah.
Penn State alum and a fan of the Nittany Lions. Is that a successful season if they get in at the back end of the playoff, like a 12 seed, 11 seed, and lose in the first round? You're happy?
It almost feels like printing money at the Treasury. Like we're manufacturing this success. I think I'll be okay. I think I will be fine with that. A first-round exit, first year in the 12-team playoff as a Penn State fan, I think I'll be okay with it. I think you would too with the U.
It feels synonymous to, like, the NFL just added the 7 seed, and you think about the play-in in the NBA, like the Pelicans are always hovering around the play-in, and ironically the Miami Heat, even though they make it to the finals with it. But, like, it doesn't – for New Orleans, it kind of does feel like a box checked if you make the play-in and maybe win the first game, lose the second.
Yeah, college football is so different than pro sports.
Right.
It's so hard to be the elite of the elite, and there's years when there are 8 actual championship contenders, and then there are years like the Cincinnati year where there was actually only 3 that you could actually believe win a national championship. So it's a year-by-year basis. It's better to include teams that shouldn't be there than leave out teams that might have a chance.
Dang, not a big Desmond Ridder guy, I see.
It was ugly. I didn't like watching that game.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Speaking of Desmond Ridder, his old coach when he was with the Falcons was Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith, now the offensive coordinator of those Pittsburgh Steelers. And boy, do we have a good show this preseason when it comes not just to the AFC North, right? There's so many storylines. The AFC North is packed with just compelling storylines through the camp into the fall. When you think about the Browns, is Deshaun Watson going to be good? You think about the Bengals. Is T. Higgins going to be happy? Is Joe Burrow going to be able to stay healthy? And is that team's chemistry still intact? The Ravens, I mean, you lose Mike McDonald as a defensive coordinator. You lose a few offensive linemen. Is the offense the same? Is the defense able to recover from the brain drain? And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers where it's going to come down to one position, and it's the most important position in team sports, and that's quarterback. Mike Tomlin addressed the media about the quarterback position. Of course, you got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields on one-year deals. Wilson, it feels like this is do or die for him in his career. Justin Fields, he has an opportunity to take over and become a future starter in this league and make some major money if he's able to step into position. But here's Mike Tomlin. Before we get into where the Steelers should go with this quarterback room, here's Mike Tomlin when he was asked specifically how he's going to manage QB reps throughout this preseason.
You guys think I'm going to actually back myself into a corner so you guys are going to ask me daily about the rep allocations? In no way. I've been on the job too long for that.
He's a vet. He said very carefully will he manage those, and there's no way at all he's going to tip his hand about who's going to lead. So he did say before the season, Russell Wilson's in pole position. He will be the starter, though today Wilson had a calf soreness, so he was out. And Justin Fields took some QB1 reps, and we saw some Twitter highlights come out that look pretty good, and there's some hype around whether or not Justin Fields can have a reclamation in Pittsburgh. But here's what I really think about this, C-Cat, because everybody's wondering, well, what's Theo think about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation? Like, when you woke up this morning, weren't you just sitting there racking your brain? I wonder what Theo's going to say about Fields versus Wilson.
In the shower, applying the shampoo, eyes closed. I was thinking about that, yes.
This, you know what? Wonder no longer. This is exactly how it should pan out, and this is what would be most beneficial for Justin Fields. If you're Justin Fields and you have an opportunity now to have that reclamation, you see what guys like Trevor Lawrence are making without any real success in the NFL. Jared Goff, Tua's about to make. Brock Purdy's going to get paid. You have a chance to be on that level of quarterback if you can perform well. And I would say if you're Justin Fields, you want to get as many of these first-team reps in the preseason as possible, but you want it to be Russell Wilson starting out of the gate for the Steelers so that you can have an opportunity to sit back, learn that Arthur Smith program and that system for as many weeks as possible until Russell Wilson, either one of two things happens. He inevitably fails, and the Steelers are underperforming on offense, which, given the track record from Wilson over the past couple of years, his deficiency in throwing the ball over the middle of the field, which is where Arthur Smith seems to like to direct his offense, and the fact that he's 35 years old, so a calf strain in the offseason could turn into something more during the season. By week 4, week 5, week 6, the fans are chanting, we want Justin Fields. The Steelers are underperforming like they've done a lot of different years early on, and Fields gets to step in with that runway, learning the offense more from behind, watching the mistakes Wilson makes, and being a more dynamic runner. A guy that has probably a bigger arm than Wilson right now, interjecting some new energy into that offense. Like, Justin Fields, if you're listening, get all the reps you can right now in the preseason and the camp and everything like that, but you're going to want to start the season on the bench, wait 5 or 6 weeks until your name is called, and then go take that thing by the horns, because I do feel like as everybody's out on the Steelers, Arthur Smith dragged Desmond Ridder, right? Who else was out there playing quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons? Was it Taylor Heineke at a certain point? He dragged these dudes to 8-9 win seasons without an elite defense as a head coach. We saw what Arthur Smith did in Tennessee as an OC for Ryan Tannehill, pulling out the best seasons that he's ever had. Justin Fields is way more athletic than those guys, way more dynamic, and if he has time to really sit back and get a hold of this offense, I think it's a perfect runway and perfect situation for Justin Fields to take over and be a good starter and maybe even the quarterback of the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But it only happens if he gets to sit the first few weeks. I looked at that Steelers schedule, and there's a few teams in there in the first 5-6 weeks that can absolutely dismantle Justin Fields' confidence. I would say just throw Russell Wilson to the Wolves, and you come in and save the day. C-Cat, am I on the right track here right now? Is that the best case scenario for not just the Steelers, but also for Justin Fields?
Do you think that there's a scenario in which Justin Fields lights it up and puts a lot of great stuff on film during practice in Russell Wilson's absence to where they do make the switch? Is that possible to lose your quote-unquote starting job? You never actually started a regular season game in this scenario?
I think with Mike Tomlin, the way that he runs that franchise and the amount of, like, he's just so consistent and so level-headed, I think no matter what happens this camp, outside of an injury to Wilson in the preseason, he's going to be the day one starter. Like, Russell Wilson's going to start for the Steelers when they open up against the Falcons in Atlanta on September 8th. But again, then you got the Broncos, elite pass defense. Then you got the Chargers at home in the next week, a Jim Harbaugh coach defense. They're going to be competitive. You got the Colts the next week. Maybe Russell Wilson bounces back. But then again, week 5, home to the Cowboys. I can see Russell Wilson running for his life right now away from Micah Parsons. Week 6, that Raiders defensive front, they're going to be at Vegas. The Steelers are. You ain't got a lot of options on that offense right now when it comes to weapons if you're Russell Wilson, and you're going to be running for your life. Christian Wilkins out there, Max Crosby, the other guy on the edge. That's a good front and a well-coached defense. And then you got the Jets after that. I think that 3-game stretch, Cowboys, Raiders, Jets, that can be the dismantling, especially if Justin Fields is playing in that might be tough for him. You let Russell Wilson go through that, and then week 7, Justin Fields gets to come in and be the at home against the Giants on October 28th. He can be the hero and throw for 2 touchdowns, run for 2 more, and put some batteries into the back of those fans waving the terrible towels. There's a perfect runway for Justin Fields. Impress in camp, let Russell Wilson start, and be the hero and take over. It's perfectly laid out.
Counterpoint, however, when you've got two quarterbacks, you might not have one quarterback. If these guys are both here all the way through week 17, week 18, you might want to trade one of them. And if Russell Wilson starts week 1, does very well, you're not going to want to trade away Justin Fields because obviously looking at the ages of these two guys, you want to keep Justin Fields for the future.
There's no market for either one of these guys right now.
If you flip it, I think there's a market for Justin Fields possibly out there. We saw it this offseason. The market's not great, but a team's going to get a whole lot more desperate. Think about if the Jets could have had Justin Fields last season after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. How much they would have given for maybe this version of Justin Fields, who put a lot of bad stuff on tape, and we saw his market value this offseason. They would have gotten something for him. Yeah. They sure would have.
Maybe. But Justin, I don't. What did the Steelers get Justin Fields for this year? Like a 4th-round pick or a 6th-round pick?
Yeah, it was low. It was not top 3.
There's absolutely no market for both. Yeah, 6th-round pick. There's absolutely no market right now for Fields or Wilson. And on those 1-year deals, I feel like teams would take their chances with them. I don't think anybody's trading for them this year. But again, you let Wilson be fed to the wolves. At 35 years old, as a guy that has not had a lot of success over the last few years, and as a guy that doesn't really feel like he fits Arthur Smith's play style, let him go out there and fail, come in and save the day. The road is set. I'm starting to become a Justin Fields believer, which I don't know how. I don't know why. Maybe it's the C.J. Stroud effect. He's raising the bar for Ohio State quarterbacks everywhere. But we'll get more into that as we get closer to the NFL season. What we need to do now, before we get Tina on here very soon, is maybe jump into the Get Around. The Get Around is obviously our vehicle that we use to go all across the nation, hit the biggest sports headlines of the day. It's our route to help you out. As you were done with your work day, you missed a lot of stuff. It's the Get Around where we bounce from town to town. Before we do that, do we have a caller here on the Fields and Wilson situation?
Yeah, Vontae in Atlanta.
Vontae's in Atlanta. Vontae is hopping on Theoretically Speaking. He heard me lay out the perfect plan for Justin Fields, and now he's here to stamp it. Vontae, what you got for us?
Okay, first off, I want to say I really do think that if Russell Wilson to me did not have as bad of a year as everybody is saying. Mm-hmm. But if they play the same system like they've been doing forever in Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson's not going to have a lot of pressure on him. They're going to pass to the running back. He's great at play action. I think if he wins 2 or 3 out of the first 6 games, he's going to start, and I think it's actually going to be worse for Fields. Reason being, they're going to hold off a whole year, I think. I don't think they're going to trade him. I think he may be the quarterback for the future, maybe. But I think if Russell does good at the beginning, which he's capable of, I really do think he will be their starter.
That's a good call. I appreciate the call, Vontae, because, that is the danger of starting on the bench if you're Fields. We've seen Mike Tomlin make you-know-what out of you-know-what with that Steelers quarterback room over the past 3 years. And it is a bit of a fear. If Russell Wilson just holds them slightly above water long enough to keep Fields on the bench and he never gets to prove himself, well, what kind of deal are you able to negotiate for next year? Remember, they declined that 5th-year option. If you don't get any time on the field to show how good you are, you might have to sign one of those Jordan Love prove-it deals or something less than that just to get a chance to get on the field and prove yourself. It is a bit of a risk, I will admit, but I'm willing to hedge my bets. I'm willing to short Russell Wilson stock in order to actually have a better chance, because I think throwing Fields out there too early, if he gets embarrassed this year, if he does start in these first few games and it looks bad, that's a career ender.
So you're thinking this is not an Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. situation, because Penix Jr. is pretty old too. and Justin Fields went into the league pretty young.
Yeah.
So I didn't look at their ages, but they're not too far apart. Both aging quarterbacks that had their better years behind them, who knows?
Yeah, and I think the difference is Russell Wilson is on that 1-year deal. Kirk Cousins has $100 million guaranteed, and I think they have guarantees that run through part of the 3rd year there, whereas Michael Penix Jr. is also on the 1st year of his rookie contract. A lot more leeway for both of those guys to stay in Atlanta. We don't know who the hell is going to be behind center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's do a quick get around. Before we bring in Tina for some theoreticals. We have some banana discussions around the office that we must get to. It's the get around on Theoretically Speaking. The Get Around today brought to you by EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing, EDSisyes.com. We'll get to that, but first, our first stop.
Next stop,
Santa Clara. The bay is burning. Wideout Brandon Ayuk and tackle Trent Williams are both not practicing as they angle for new contracts with the 49ers.
I'm all the way out on the Niners this year. What happened the last time they actually lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl with a mediocre quarterback? Yeah. The next year, 6 wins, last place in the NFC West, a bit of a rebuild, a bit of a retooling. I believe that same thing's going to happen this year. It's more likely the 49ers miss the playoffs than it is they actually make it back to the Super Bowl. That disease of me is starting to set in, and they haven't even gotten that Super Bowl yet. Kyle Shanahan's reaching for straws. Hey, Bill Belichick, can you save me? Can you come help a brother out? Well, I'll let you know right now, ain't no life raft. Steve Wilkes, scapegoat, I hope what you got to replace him was worth it, because the 49ers are going to be on the outs of the playoffs this year. Super Bowl hangover en route.
Next stop,
Wee Paris, France.
Love it.
Canadian sailor Sarah Douglas showed off the goodie bag she got in her Olympic Village room.
Oh, nice.
It came packed to the brim with condoms.
Well, and I get it. You know, athletes don't like to get the freak on. It's like a little, month and a half camp. A lot of good-looking people in shape at the highest of the high of their careers. So, might get a little freaky out there. It made me think, though, if you are just casually dating an Olympian and they go off to the Olympic Village, are you worried if you're not invited out there to be able to go? Maybe y'all aren't far enough in that talking stage, in that dating stage to be able to visit? That's concerning.
Yeah, so if you are the spouse or the boyfriend, girlfriend of an Olympic athlete, it's almost like the everyday person finds out that their girlfriend's going on the girls' trip to Miami. But except it's a month-long girls' trip to Miami. How does that feel, Theo? We live in Miami, so we don't really have that problem.
Yeah.
But before you lived in Miami, that sure was.
You don't want that. You do not want the girls' trip to Miami. You do not want that kind of influence around your woman on a daily basis. I don't care how much trust you got. You have a little bit more anxiety around that. And I would say, anybody out there dating an Olympic athlete, as they head off to Paris, just be conscious.
Nightly FaceTimes. Got to have them scheduled. Put an alarm every single night, 9 p.m., nightly FaceTime.
You might be able to get your freak on after a little morning practice over there, though. It's nothing else to do. They're just training and apparently getting a freak on. I didn't want to say what I was actually going to say because that would have been worse. Let's get out of the Get Around before I get bounced out of here. The Get Around, again, brought to you by EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing. EDS is yes. EDSisyes.com, actually. That's where you could go to find out about your trusted AC experts in Palm Beach County. I mean, it don't get much higher than this. An 4.8-star Google rating with over 760 reviews, and that's because EDS has been keeping you cool since 2006. They've been doing it and doing it and doing it well. You got 24/7 support at EDSisyes.com. You get timely service, and I do mean this. I literally just had an EDS appointment. I just hopped online. EDSisyes.com. I scheduled it around my day, and they're going to give you an alert ahead of time. They're going to show up on time, and they're going to take care of you at your convenience. You can book it online, EDSisyes.com, and they're here for you. All of your AC and plumbing needs can be found in one place, EDSisyes.com. Kick it with the real people out here getting around. I love to get around. On the other side, we got to get Tina, and we got Banana Gate at ESPN West Palm. We're getting to the bottom of this thing. That's CCAT. I'm Theo Dorsey. We're theoretically speaking on ESPN 106.3.
Live from the Anajar and Levine accident